Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Benjamin Shipper. I'm a cartoonist and these two are my books. I'm going to talk today, it's going to be a little bit of a personal retrospective of a work I did, first work in comics back in 2018. It's almost, 8 years ago. With the Jim Henson Company through Archaea Boom Studios. I'll get into that. This is my graphic novel I published a few years ago, Joe Death and the Graven Image. Thanks for everyone who's been, I feel like there's been an uptake on my web store. I've been sending out just books recently. So thanks for those who are purchasing. And if you'd like to get a copy, go to my website, benjaminshipper.com. Order there. I'll sign it in the front and ship it out to you shortly. So, as you can expect, there's the story of the comic, and then there's a story of how this happened from every creator. So, I don't know which one to tell first. I'll crack it open. I'll talk about the story and the inspiration for it, and then I'll tell you a little bit of the interesting backstory of it. It's not super deep, but I think there's some really good. There's a good lesson for me, and I hope possibly for you as well. But this is Jim Henson's Storyteller. It started as a TV show, as you can imagine. Jim Henson being the legendary creator of Muppets and Fraggle Rock, Dark Crystal, Labyrinth. He is into puppets. That's his thing, is puppets. And he had a TV series starring John Hurt, who anyone who draws the Storyteller as a comic has to put John Hurt in there, and who you know from Alien. I hadn't known anything about it when I was asked to do it, so I looked at the show, watched all the previous episodes. There's like 2 seasons. Anyway, interesting just way of doing folk tales, right? So like folk tales are public domain. They've been in European history forever, and we still have that ability to recover them, change them a little bit to suit our personal desires or the audience that we're speaking to. There's a lot of play. It's folk tales, folklore, and I'm fascinated by it, and it still happens today. I mean, I think for good and bad. I mean, for good and bad, depending on your perspective. The stories that we tell and the stories that we love are taken by somebody else, and they're either really honored or really trashed by, depending on your perspective. But it's like a life force. It's like a force of its own. It's a living kind of, I think truth and deception is a kind of living forces. But back to this one, I was asked to, everyone so there's a comic series that Boom, which is the owner of Archaea, they have the license to Jim Henson, the Storyteller, and it's a great on-ramp, I think, for them to try out new cartoonists, new writers. And so they have different, there's like 4, they go in, I guess like, the series that I did is fairies. So there's one with dragons, there's one with, I think possibly mermaids, maybe witches, giants, I think. But there's a theme, I guess, and there's 4 stories in each theme. They don't have to be connected. And most times they're not connected. And so I got to just choose a fairy tale from some pre-existing, collection. And I had this Scandinavian stories. At the time, certainly 8 years ago, I was not very well versed in folk tales or fairy tales, besides the normal ones, the big hitters. And so I wanted to find something that was a little bit off the beaten path. And so I just cracked open this one, Scandinavian stories, and read a few and found a Danish one called Elf Hill, and I really liked it. I won't, I don't even know if I could tell you the differences of what I did and what the story did, because it's been so long since I've read it, but that's where it came from. And if you'd like to compare notes as you read this, you can find that story somewhere else. Also, like this is out of print for sure, and I only have a few copies. But I think you can get it still on Comixology if you want to read it. Anyway, I was really vibing on Tove Jansson, and she's the creator of Moomin, and she illustrated like Tolkien's Hobbit in Finland, where she's from. I believe she's from Finland. Anyway, she's an amazing talent. Her black and white work is amazing, and maybe I should pause and go run and get some reference to show you, but I'll do that later. So this was my first comic, and I just loved the ability to take a folktale that there was a narrative there, and then I could put it inside a narrative. So the Storyteller is a frame character, and he opens with him in his house and his dog, getting you into the story. So page 1 does that. Then we launch into the narration of the story of this this child who's born under kind of an ill omen, under a thorn bush, and he grows up into a very thorny person, a conqueror, and he's having trouble because he's conquered everything. He's conquered everything, and he doesn't know what to do now. His life is meaningless. He's young. He's conquered everything. What else is a conqueror got to do? So this court, one of the people in his court tells him that there is a fairy hill inside his kingdom, and it isn't ruled by any man. No king has control over it, which makes him quite upset at night. He's just tossing and turning, and man, I am so really proud of this. I really put my all into it, and a few features that I really like are just like being able to figure out on my first comic that like I can do this, where I can have a panel that's one panel, but then I can split that panel to get a little bit more in there, but still connected. So the panel, if you think of a panel, the white spaces as time elapsing, then you can think of this as no time elapsing. You know, he's tossing, he's turning, he's kind of scared or kind of wondering to being angry. Same with this. There's a map. It says mine, all mine, and then inside it is a red dot that says not mine. Which, like, I'm just patting myself on the back, like it's just that was just so good. And also putting that split there, just like a zoom in mechanic, just to show visually that like this is what's on his mind, bringing that color over to the elves, or what his perception of what's happening there. This is his perception of the elf queen or elf ruler being inside his kingdom, and then also over to his eye here. So I was on fire. It's all downhill from here after your first comic. So wakes up obviously like super tired, ready to go out though, because that's what he does, and travels. I wanted to put a little bit of mood and a little bit of like time elapsing, like it takes a while to get to where he needs to be, Elf Hill. And he has this sort of moment of like personal doubt, like there's really nothing here. Why am I doing this? What's the point of living? And then he hears a bell, wind, strong, a door, narrow, and like I'm still in love with this. This is embarrassing because I really it's like really like my own work when I work hard at it, and I and I see the fruit of labor, I guess, is the quality. It's not necessarily like, did this sell like big numbers and am I famous? I guess I just still take a good amount of pleasure and just a job well done. So you're gonna have to pardon me, but I love the descending poetry of it. A bell, soft, a wind, strong, a door, narrow, a stair, black, overlaid over the pictures, and a real strength to like narration. Like I try, I don't. I hope I have not handicapped myself permanently from never writing comic with narration. Joe Death is mostly, I wanted to basically have no narration and only dialogue. And since that decision, I have been really enjoying it's like books that have narration, because you get that separation of somebody talking about something and then seeing it. So anyway, he descends the stair, he sees the queen, a little different than his perception. So he's challenged by the perception of what he thought of her and the reality of who she is. And she challenges him with, I would say, the truth that good authority doesn't look like abstract distance from your subjects or from the land that you rule, but a good authority, a good king, is someone who dwells with the people, who knows them, who is the servant of his people. That's what a king should be. So he's challenged with that, and wakes up in his bed, and it's fairy tale. So I love that ability to just be like, he traveled, he's in a place, but it's not, the mechanics of it are not as important as the meaning in the place and the situation and the challenge. And so you can just go boom, like right back to his bed, and he wakes up and he's supposed to basically probably behead this guy who's causing trouble in the city, which is what he would have done probably if he hadn't met the fairy queen. And instead he challenges him to a game in which he loses. And see down here in the red, he has the ability to, it's like the cross, he's crossing the Rubicon, or he's making the change where he has the ability to freak out and kill this guy for beating him in chess. That's what a tyrant would do or could do. But instead, the change is to laugh and to pardon him and to accept him as someone who can be in his kingdom, as a usable, worthy servant who can help him improve his kingdom. Next day, he's kind of going back and forth. He goes out, and we see he's very much taken by her, and the whole difference of a kingdom that is ruled by love or exists in love, in a relationship of love, which is what she has with her little kingdom, her world of fairies. And again, he's back with a similar situation. And he meets this woman who's, feeding the sick, trying to cure them. Maybe she was charged with like witchcraft, and he finds out that she's actually making medicine, trying to heal them. It's another image of like, if he goes on his previous perception, he could just off with her head, right? But to bring himself and her into communion with each other, to talk and to learn that is the picture of good authority. And if there is a place for her to improve the kingdom, a good ruler, a good authority discovers that and places her in a position in which she can improve with greater power. So this relationship goes on. He's got a beard. I wanted to show that. And just this is a transition between like a standing army into a landholder kind of situation. So this is like, yeah, this boom, 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 all these interactions that he has with the fairy world. He comes back and improves his kingdom by relationship, by love, by different like vignettes of what's already in his kingdom. You know, there's something about like ruling a kingdom is like you possess it like a dragon. That's like a dragon quality, just to possess something and sit on it and to not use it. But he discovers what's in his kingdom, and he, you know, it's a picture of kind of heaven, you know, everyone finding their own place and a place being made for everyone. Like an artist who builds toys. Now he gets to build, you know, part of the kingdom. And kind of this idea of this like machined servant that is like a yes man, just yes, 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 changing into a variety of viewpoints and talents and backgrounds. And a visual of like the palace, his kingdom improving. Really started to use like color holds. I really tried to figure out how to make things a little softer. And, you know, this is like, I like what I did here. You know, okay, I'm going to do it again. It's a descent into what some people would call madness, right? Like, here's this king, he's playing with moose and deer, and he's like fishing with children, and he's playing, you know, pipes at a party. He's dancing with, you know, it could be this descent into madness coming from the people who think that a king should be this. A king should be this kind of conqueror, or this kind of person who is hard, but strength is found in love and self-sacrifice. And that's what I tried to portray here. And it not pays out for him, but it certainly improves his funeral. You know, like people show up, right? People show up to this guy's funeral because he was transformed from a selfish person into a unselfish person. And I just tried to show that here in this big spread. And this was a big, like, I'm going for something big. This felt big. This felt epic for me as a new cartoonist, and really as a new illustrator, to do a large group scene and to figure out the shorthand of how to do that, how to draw so many people without losing my life, you know, without just taking forever. I think I even put like cameos of like me. I had long hair at the time. This is my wife, Karen. We had a friend, Luke, Ryan, Katie, Brady, Emily. Some of my closest friends. I put a little cameo down here. Yeah, so split here. There's the king getting born on a litter into the bier or the pyre there, where he will be burnt, but not forgotten. And there's the statue with the image of a good king conquering death, and someone to thank as well. So that's it. And I went and grabbed Tove Jansson's book. So stylistically, like, let's look at her pen and ink work. She's amazing, but yeah, the pen and ink work, her and Edward Gorey I was looking at a lot. Just the way they're using pen lines and just being scratchy, and it's so good. It's like it's such a scratchy, disconnected lines, like so many lines. There's one really good piece in here that it's a great example of it. But I might have even found her because she's from Finland, and I was doing more, this is Scandinavian tale, and so I felt like, I'm not a graphic designer, but that like my wife is, and so the idea that like you design with design thinking, you design with purpose, and so the choices that you make should be informed to fit the whole package. So doing a Nordic or a Scandinavian tale, here's a good one. I felt it kind of responsible to find an illustrator that I liked in that realm, and to not be so precious about my style exactly, but to gravitate towards a tradition, trying to find just something that I liked, but something that I could also practice as well. So here's a good image of her work, and maybe you can see some of the similarities. I mean, I'm using a lot more darker colors, but certainly using a lot of like scratchy lines to render everything. But that's the story. All right, that is the comic. That is the story. Actually, it is on my website, benjaminshipper.com, for free. I have the whole thing, and thumbnails, my thumbnail sketches. So you can see the pages kind of, come alive there, and see my process a little bit. So, okay, the story of how I got here, why I did this, how I did this, as my first comic. I did do a few small things on the internet, which got some interest. And Corey Godby, who's a friend of mine, but has done stuff in the Jim Henson world with Boom and Archaea, noticed that I had done a comic for myself, and was like, hey, there's, opportunity here. I'll just introduce you to an editor who does the Storyteller. So he made the introduction, and I was on board, when they asked me to do it. I was like, that's fantastic. And then I was like, well, it's 22 pages. I'm going to draw, I'm going to write, I'm going to color, I'm going to letter, everything. I had kind of a number price tag in my mind that I wanted. And coming from like illustration, where like I'd gotten like $20,000 for a children's book, right? Just to like do a children's book with less images, less work. It was just like, anyway, that was a high bar. 20,000 from myself was a high bar in illustration for a publisher. But still, there's, I'm thinking like something, in the 5,000-7,000, for a comic book. And what I received, or what I was quoted, was significantly less than that. It was like, it felt like peanuts. It felt like, like what? Like I'm going to do all this work for not having the rights to sell this myself. So I was like, that just doesn't seem to square with me. So I went to a Comic-Con, Heroes Con. I met some of my heroes at the time, and still are. And they said, don't do it for that. That's peanuts. Don't, you're a beginner, but your work is better than that. No one should get paid that little. And so that made sense to me. It also sort of elevated my vanity a little bit. Like, yeah, I am worth more than what they were giving. And that the idea of like, don't do stuff for your, people, companies who can pay more, they try to get people by saying it's for your portfolio, right? So it's like, I've got that image of like this publisher who's just wants to use and rob, young talent in my mind. And so I went back to my hotel room and wrote an email saying, I would like to do this, but I want more money. it needs to be a higher price for me to do this. And the editor was like, oh, that's fair, but our budget is this, and so no, we can't we can't give you any more money. And at this time, I was like already, I sort of already found the folktale. I was sort of drafting it in my head. I had sort of fallen in love a little bit with the original Storyteller show, and so I'm sort of in it. I'm sort of in it deep, and it took me a few days to think about it. And I went home after Heroes Con, and I was walking with my dog, and I was like, it's nice that professionals thought my work was professional, and they did sort of want me to ask for more, right? But they're not paying me to do any comic. I mean, they're not giving me any work. Like they're nice people, they're good artists, but they're not the ones commissioning me to do any work. So like I can stay on the sidelines and continue to not do work for any publisher who doesn't meet my bar, or I can just take a little bit of humility, do the comic, do it. It's got to be the best thing that I've ever done in order for me to get what I want, which is my work out there in a noticeable place. So that was also a choice later. So anyway, I wrote back to the editor and was like, sorry, so like, not necessarily hat in hand, but like, I can do it for this amount of money. Like, I'm not destitute, we've got a double income with my wife and I. Like, I can do this work, even though I think it's possibly worth a little bit more. I would like to do this work. And I didn't mention that, like, I believe that you're robbing me. But no, I just said I would like to do this work. I would like to do it. And at that point, I was like, okay, the value of it really is the name Jim Henson. Like, and working with Boom and Archaea. Like, as shady as that might sound to unexperienced artists, or like, it could be used poorly, like from a publisher to sort of strong arm a young artist into just accepting very little money for it. But I did realize that there is a value in legacy. There is a value in name. And so it's a little bit of a gamble too, because I'm like, I can't just do this like slovenly, just sort of like, okay, like I'll do it and kind of like, I'll get the peanuts, get the little check, and I'll just do better on the next one, because they didn't pay me. They're not paying me to do a good job on this one, so I'm not going to do a good job on this one. I'll just give them, very average work. And I was like, well, no, like it cannot be that. It has to be like the highest bar I've ever done. And I have to come out of the gate swinging, because if I'm going to if there's going to be value associated with my name, there's already value associated with Jim Henson, right? People know him. He's done incredible work. Meanwhile, I have not done incredible work, very little work. So I've got to show people that there's value in my work, in my writing, in my artwork. So having that decision made was an incredibly liberating thing, to know why I'm doing this, to know what I'm doing, and to know why. And I just had a blast doing it. And I loved the result of just having it in comic book stands. Like, I was living in New York at the time, and is it Thanks for Another World? Oh shoot, Forbidden Planet. And a few other comic book stores in New York City had this on the shelves, and I got to do a few signings in different places. It was a big deal for me, and while the experienced artists that I had talked to, it wouldn't have been a big deal for them. It certainly was for me. And so I think, this is the danger with everything. When you're asking an opinion, anyone who's giving you any advice or they're not in your situation. So you have to evaluate what it is that you can do. should you do it? Should you not do it? And you have to think about it in your context. So I hope that wasn't too boring. I hope it was interesting. And I'll leave you with that today. Also, forgot to say, I did use this to leverage into my next project, my next book. I don't say leverage. It wasn't like it was blackmail, but it was certainly like, this is my calling card. This is what I can do. And because I did what I think a good job, like it was shared around, like David Peterson of Mouse Card fame shared this on Twitter, I think at the time, and was just like, yes, good job. And a few other people too. And it's like, this is something that I can give. I did give to editors at like at Mocha. I talked to people at different like the big publishing houses, like, and passed this around, and people liked it. People responded. I had the ability to do books at major graphic novel publishing houses because of this one. I had already been working privately on Joe Death, and so I was like, I've got to do this first. And so the story of just what I could do and what I wanted to do and what I was pitching around at the time is long and arduous and somewhat embarrassing to me. But maybe I'll tell a little bit about that later. But all I'm saying is, good work promotes, opportunity for more good work, for more projects. And I do think this is, nothing else would have done anything like at the time. This is what ticked the boxes to get to the next challenge of doing a bigger graphic novel at a major publisher like Dark Horse. So there's value, there's value in legacy properties like Jim Henson, Star Wars, these intellectual properties that are that I've certainly like thrown some shade at, Batman or Spider-Man or Star Wars. It's like they are sandboxes. And if you get the opportunity to play in the sandbox, you're gonna have people telling you what you can and can't do. And so you have to know that in the advance, and you have to accept that. You have to accept an authority that is not your own. And I think young artists especially, it's like that. No, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's very hard. It cuts against the grain of, like, I think modern art and modern artists and individuals, art as individualism. But if you can do both, if you can get your teeth cut in one of those ways, I think it is valuable, and I'd encourage you all to try things like that. Pitch your work out to publishers that are like Boom and Archaea, that have a wider variety of like style and influence, and so good luck out there if you are a cartoonist, and I hope this helped.